everybody, I'd like to review a few of the concepts that we talked about last week, but I want to do it through looking at online discussion boards and what are some good ways to respond to an online discussion board and what are some not so good ways. I think this will help you with both this course and any other courses that you have in the future that use discussion boards. So let's take a look. Last week, our discussion board was answering the question, what is language? What does it mean to know it? And what does it mean to teach it? Just so that you remember what question we were talking about last week. So here are some discussion board don'ts. I want you to pay attention to this. I wrote these are not from any of you, last week. But I want you to kind of pay attention to what I did with this particular post to a discussion board, okay? So I said, I think that language is a way of communicating. So I'm answering that question, what do I think language is? It can be talking, and it can also be communicating through body language, facial expressions. It's so great when a person can be bilingual or even multilingual and use more than one language to communicate. I really liked what Lily Wong Fillmore had to say about language. When we teach language, it's important to understand theories of language acquisition, like those of Chomsky and Krashen. Skinner and Vygotsky were important too. Finally, it is important to remember stance, design, and shifts when using translanguaging to teach language, as Garcia mentioned. Now, you might laugh at this. I know this is a little bit of an extreme example, and that's okay. That's what I meant to do, okay? But what I'm doing here is I'm doing what I asked you to do after that first discussion board, and I'm mentioning the text, and I'm mentioning the video. But what I can't tell from reading this discussion board post is if you really understood what it is that you read, and if you understood that what the question's asking, right? If you can answer the question through what text that we read this week. So take a look at how this person, this fake person, myself, answered the question, what you think, what language is. So I think language is a way of communicating. This is what I think language is, but I really didn't answer that first question of what language is through something that we read or something that we've learned so far in this course. It's just kind of this is what I think, right? So this is maybe a good I think answer, but it really doesn't come from something that we learned in this course. I did mention the Lily Wong Fillmore video, and she really isn't a language expert that we have a lot to learn from, but all that I said was I liked what she had to say about language, right? So I mentioned the video, but I really didn't say anything that I learned from that video. Then when I come to the issue of teaching language, I say when we teach language, it's important to understand theories of language acquisition, like those of Chomsky and Krashen, and then Skinner and Vygotsky were important too. So basically what I did was I listed off some of these important people, and they were important people, but I just made a list of their names. I really don't get a sense from this post that I understood why they were important or why their theories are important to teaching language. And then finally, mentioning Garcia's article that we read, it's important to remember stance, design, and shifts. I don't get an idea that the person who wrote this post knows why those ideas are important or what they are even or why they're important to teaching language. So I listed off some vocabulary words basically from that article, but really don't get an idea of what they are or why they're important to teaching language. Okay? Let's take a look at some discussion board do's. So here's another example of a post. Again, I wrote this. It didn't come from any of you. So I said in Chapter 2 of Write, 2019, we learned that language is the ability that we have as humans to put together a system of signs and sounds to form communication with each other. Some of you actually gave the exact quote from the textbook for that definition of language, and that's fine also. We also came to understand the important role we play as educators in working to understand our students' home languages and cultures, which is part of our job as language teachers, and that's something that we talked about the first couple of weeks of the course. The first and second language acquisition theories described in Chapter 3 show that knowing a language is not such a simple concept as we might think, and it includes linguistic processing as well as sociocultural processes. So those are some concepts that we learned in Chapter 3 this week. It's impossible to cover everything that was in Chapter 3 in a 200-word discussion board post. It would be impossible to try to fit everything in, right? So I just kind of made it clear that I understood what Chapter 3 was about. To teach language, we need to understand what Wong Fillmore refers to as the big wall that language can be for our emergent bilingual students. Garcia gives some practical suggestions for implementing translanguaging pedagogy in bilingual education, such as designing lessons that build connections between languages and being flexible enough to shift instruction when the need arises. So I've mentioned some ideas from both the text and also from the video that give an idea that I can answer the question, what is language, and also how we teach language. Again, This is a really loaded question that you could write a 10-page paper on probably to answer this question, but you're just writing a 200-word discussion board post. You're not showing me that you've become a major expert in this field yet. You're just showing me that you understood what the texts were about, what the readings were about. But you're answering the question through what you read. So I hope those two examples give you kind of an idea of what a good discussion board post is, and maybe what a not so good discussion board post is, because sometimes those two examples are helpful for us. And again, when you answer your classmates, some of you did a really great job this week too of incorporating those text readings into your answers to your classmates also. So hopefully those give you some good suggestions as we move forward with the discussion boards and as you move forward in other courses also with discussion boards. I hope you guys have a great week this week. I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you on the Flipgrid. I know some of you don't like to show your faces so much, but I really do love to see you because we don't get that face-to-face interaction so much in this course. So keep those great questions coming. I look forward to this week. Take care, everybody.